Oh, good morning.
Morning.
Man, I hate when I'm the first one.
Why? Because it put you up big?
Yeah.
I know. That's the way I feel when I first started, and it's just like me right there staring at it.
The work we had to do yesterday, do we have to turn that in or no?
It's okay. It's just I wanted you to try those three. We're going to talk about them today. Make sure everybody's got those down before we start talking about rotations. Yay! Of course, I thought I was late, and then I'm still waiting. It's just two of you. How's that work? All right. How's Russian? All right. Oh, there's okay. Let's see. Okay, so Mia, Monica. All right, so what we're doing first is we're going over the three problems I asked you to try yesterday on page 463. Making sure you all know how to do your points when it's reflection over x-axis, y-axis, and the line y equals x. So page 463, or if you're doing it on your own paper, then you have the paper. So we can go over that before we start talking about what's next. And I'm trying to position where the glare's not right over the problem. There we go, that's a little bit better. I found another marker, so it'll be a little bit darker when I'm writing the answers up there. All right. All right, so on page 463, when we were talking about these yesterday, these are what we call reflections. A reflection takes the figure and it flips it over a certain line. Sometimes that line is the x-axis, sometimes that line is the y-axis, sometimes it's the line y equals x. It can also be any other straight line on the coordinate plane. It can be over the line x equals 3. It can be over the line y equals -2. It can be reflected over any line drawn in the coordinate plane. But these three are our main ones, so that's why I wanted to work on these with you as far as knowing the rules for them. Okay, so you had these points that were given to you on number 27, 28, and 29. And then it told you it was the figure was being reflected over a certain line. So in number 27, it said we were reflecting over the y-axis. So if you remember what we talked about yesterday, your x-axis is the horizontal axis going straight across. Your y-axis is the vertical axis, which is going straight up and down. And then you have the line y equals x, which is a diagonal line going from the bottom left to the top right. Okay, so these I told you were our three main ones we were looking at. Now, if I am reflecting over the y-axis in number 27, that means if it's over here, I'm just flipping it over to this side. Okay, so I'm flipping it across this way. So since I'm flipping from one side of the y-axis to the other, does my x-coordinate change or my y-coordinate change?
Your x?
Your x-coordinate changes, okay? Because I'm going from one side of y to the other. So over here, remember my x's are negative. Over here, my x's are positive, okay? So you're changing your x-coordinate. Your y-coordinate's gonna stay the same because it's not moving up and down anywhere. It's just going from one side of the y-axis to the other. So when you do your reflection points for number 27, like my first point was G was at 1, -3. Now remember in your ordered pair, the first number is always your X and your second number is your Y. Your X tells you left or right, the Y tells you up and down. Okay, so if you're looking at G, it was at 1, -3. We already said you're changing the x coordinate when you're reflecting over the y-axis. So basically, whichever one you're flipping over, that one stays the same. If I'm flipping over the y-axis, the y stays the same, you change the x. So it will become -1, -3. Okay, think about where we're at to begin with. 1, -3 would be like down here somewhere, right? Over 1, down 3. Okay, I'm flipping it over this line, so it will be -1, down 3. So instead of going 1 to the right and 3 down, I'll go 1 to the left and 3 down. Okay, that's reflecting it over the y-axis. So who can tell me what you should have for h as your coordinates? Everybody should be able to tell me, or I'll start just nominating everybody.
I got -4, -2.
Okay. Is he right? Is he right?
I don't care.
Yeah.
He said -4, -2. So is that right?
Or just leave the two the same.
Okay. You only change the x on here. If I'm reflecting over the y-axis, the x is the opposite. Okay, the y coordinate stays the same. So if it was a +2, it's going to stay a +2. Okay, so for point I had -3, -1. So my new coordinates for point I will be
3, 1.
+3, -1. When you are reflecting over the y-axis, y stays the same. Okay? When you're reflecting over the y-axis, the y stayed the same. Because it's still going to be the same distance up or same distance down. You're just flipping which side of that line it's on. Okay? So now if I'm doing the x-axis, if I'm doing the x-axis, the x's are going to stay the same. Because here's my x-axis, so that means if it's up here at the top, it's going to flip down to the bottom. Or if it's down here at the bottom, it's going to flip up to the top. It's still going to be the same distance to the left or to the right. You're flipping it, you're changing the up and down. So remember, on our y-axis, going up is positive and going down is negative. Okay, so if we're reflecting over x-axis, the x stays the same. So for these points, when I go to do for D, D was at 4, 0. So my new D will be at 4. And then you can't say -0. I mean, 0 is still just 0. It's going to be right here on the line. Okay, so it's still going to be the same one because it's actually on the x-axis. It doesn't change. Now, what about point E, though? For my point E, what am I going to end up with?
I got 3, -2.
That's what it was to begin with.
I mean +2.
So it's going to be 3, +2. Think about what it means. Okay, this means I'm at 3, so it's 3 to the right, and -2 means 2 down. If I'm reflecting over this x-axis, that means it's going from down here, and it's going to flip to up here. So instead of being at 3, -2, it's going to be at 3, +2. Okay, you're reflecting it over that x-axis. Now this one, it was a -2, -1, so that's over here. When I flip it over the x-axis, it's still going to be at -2, but it's going to be a +1. When you're reflecting over y-axis, the y stays the same. When you're reflecting over the x-axis, the x stays the same. Now, when you get to the line y equals x, it's a little bit different because it is this diagonal line here. So that means if I'm over here on this side of the line, I've got to go over here on this side of the line. Okay, so the way it works, if you paid attention to the rules we had yesterday, is your X and Y just do what?
Flip.
They just switch the order, okay? Yes, hello, Pedro. They just switch the order, okay? I should be able to see everybody. Everybody should have their paper from yesterday. We're going over these problems. All right, so on here, it was 2, 1. So my new R, or R prime, will be 1, 2. Okay, think about what this means. I'm going to get up here. Okay, so here's 2. Here's 2, 1. It's going to be right there. Okay, so then if I reflect it over this line, I said it's going to be 1. Well, if I can draw. 1, 2. So that's 1 to the right and 2 up. So you see they're the same distance from this line. It's just flipping across that line. Okay, it's reflecting over the line y equals x. You just trade the order. So 5, 1 will become 1, 5. And 6, 5 will become 5, 6.
6.
So those were our rules, reflections from yesterday. So how many of you actually got at least part of those right? I want to see like either a head shaking up and down or a thumbs up on your screen, something. Okay, Kornaya did. Good. I think you sent me yours, didn't you? Kaya. What about Mia? Did you get them? Or did you even try them? Pedro, did you do them? Monica?
I got some right, not all of them.
Some of them right? Okay, well, that's a start. Okay, as long as I got at least
Me
some.
too.
Some of y'all need to get where I can see you because it's too dark. I can't see you. And then Michael keeps hiding his camera on me because he's moving all over the house or something. All right, so we okay with reflections? We have rules for reflections. We use those rules. And we're going to review all these more next week. I'm just wanting to get them all introduced to you, okay? Now, we talked about reflections on yesterday's class, and we also talked about another one called translations. Does anybody remember what a translation does?
Kind of.
Okay, reflection, flip the image over. Translation does what to the image? It just slides it over. Translation is called a slide. A reflection is a flip, okay? Now, both of your images are the same shape and congruent to the pre-image. Remember, pre-image is before you did the transformation. Image is after you did the transformation. Now, the ones that we're going to start talking about and just go over the rules for today are our rotations. So rotations are section 10.3. Okay, so you're going to have to flip over a couple of pages in your book. We're going to talk about rotations. Okay, now the main page I want you to focus on to begin with our rotations is at the bottom of page 475 because that's where it has our rules. I mentioned yesterday when we were going over the notes that most of the time when you do a rotation, it talks about doing it counterclockwise. Because on the coordinate plane, remember the top right is where everything's positive. Then we go to the top left, then bottom left, and bottom right. We go counterclockwise around the coordinate plane. Since these are things that are on the coordinate plane, we're also going to go counterclockwise most of the time for our rotations. So I'm going to put up here, counterclockwise rotations. We're going to go up, we have our rules there in that box at the bottom. Okay, just like we had rules for our reflections, we have our rules for our rotations. So the first thing is a 90-degree rotation. And we'll go over, I'll show you what the degrees are again in a minute. So if my original point is XY, it says my new point will be negative YX. So you're going to switch the order of the coordinates and then change the sign on the one that results in the front. Like I said, we're going to talk about some, but we're getting our rules down. Remember, you wrote down rules yesterday somewhere, either on the back of your note paper or on a separate sheet, so you have them. You need to be putting these with it. 180 degrees, it says we don't change the order, we just put the opposite sign on each one. And then 270 degrees, we change the order again, but instead of changing the sign on the one in the front, we change the sign on the one in the back. So those are our three main rules that we need for the ones we're going to talk about. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk to you about where these rules come from. Remember, we have a coordinate plane. This is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. Your x-axis and your y-axis are perpendicular to each other. Perpendicular, that means what kind of angles?
90.
90-degree angles, right? You'll notice all of these are multiples of 90 degrees. Each quadrant is equal to 90 degrees. So if I'm going from here to here, that's 90 degrees, right? That's one quadrant. Going two quadrants would be 180. Going three would be 270. And if you end up back here, you've gone a complete circle. A circle is how many?
360.
360, okay? So for your rotations, if it's moving one quadrant over, it's going 90 degrees. If it's moving two quadrants over, it's going 180. If it's moving three quadrants, 270. So that's where these degrees come from. Now, the reason these should make sense to you for your rules, X, Y. So here, X and Y are all positive, right? Yes? X and Y's are positive? When I have an ordered pair here, they're both positive, right? On an ordered pair on this one, the first number is a negative and the second one is a positive, okay? Is that kind of the signs that we have here in our rule? We have a negative and a positive, okay? Down here, everything is what?
Where?
Negative.
Oh.
180 degrees means you go halfway around. It's the exact opposite. So if I've got everything positive, the exact opposite is to have them both negative. Okay? Down here, your X is positive because it went to the right, and your second number is a negative. So you'll look at the rule, the first one, positive, second one, negative. So that's kind of where the signs came from in your rules. Okay? Now, the way this works is most of the time we do the counterclockwise rotations. And that's what I had there in that table for the rules, and it shows you on there, plus we just talked about them up here on the board. Okay? Now, sometimes they'll talk about going clockwise the opposite way. Okay? So if I'm going this way counterclockwise, like I said, this is 90, this is 180, 270. So if I'm here and go clockwise this way, I'm still just going one quadrant, so but I'm going the opposite direction. So instead of positive 90, it would be a what?
Negative.
A negative 90-degree rotation. Okay, but we know going negative 90 degrees is the same as going positive 270 degrees. So we're just going to figure out which one it matches up with and find it. So like positive 90 would be the same as negative 270 degrees. This would be if we were going clockwise. Okay. This one, it doesn't matter because they're the same. This one, it would be, if it said negative 90, then we know that's positive 270. Because sometimes it'll say, okay, if I say I'm going a negative 270-degree clockwise rotation, what does that equal to going counterclockwise? And you just tell me it's positive 90 rotation. All right, so let's look at the ones we were going to talk about. I gotta find them. I think it was starting with number 16 on page 478 are the ones we're going to try to talk about today. So page 478. Okay, we're going to look at some of them there between number 16 and 21. So I'm going to try to scoot where you still kind of have your basic rules there where you can see them if you don't have them written down, plus we'll have some room to work. All right. So let's look at number 16. Okay, number 16 says, state the image of point P after each rotation about the origin. So basically, we're just figuring out where it's going to go. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at its coordinates, okay? So we need to first of all figure out the coordinates of point P. So everybody look at their picture, find point P, and what are your coordinates? Remember your coordinates are X and Y, so however far to the right and then however far up or down. So what are your coordinates for point P? Do y'all agree with that, yes or no? I'm making sure I'm counting right on these little grids. Is that what y'all get? Does everybody see where I'm talking about even? Are you on the right page? We're on page 478. We're trying to talk about rotations using those rules I just put up there. Okay, so on here, the original point P is at the 1, 2 is its coordinates. So in part A, it said a 90-degree rotation. Okay, so look at our rules. If I'm originally, point P is at 1, 2. When I find my new point P, it said on my rule, I switch the order of the 2 points. So instead of having 1, 2, I would have 2, 1. And then I also changed the sign on the front point. So instead of it being positive, it's going to become a
Negative.
So all I did was use the rule, flip the order, and then we changed the sign on the one in the front. So it wants to know where is that going to end up being. So look on your graph. You go 2 units to the left and 1 up, so you end up at point what? If I go 2 units to the left and 1 up, what point do I end up at? I already wrote it on the board.
Oh, B.
You end up at point B, okay? I need a little bit more focus and concentration and participation. Otherwise, I'm just going to tell you, you have to do them on your own and send them to me because I feel like I'm doing all the work and you ain't doing nothing.
What question are you on?
Number 16. Okay, on page 478. All right, we just did A. We're trying to find out where point P would be at after these different rotations around the origin. So let's do point B. Says it's a 180-degree rotation. Okay, so originally point P was at 1 and 2. When we do a 180-degree rotation, what's our rule say that we do? Do we switch the order on the coordinates?
No.
No, we don't switch the order, we just change the signs. So they both become negative. So it's at -1, -2. So now we look at our graph. -1 means 1 unit to the left. -2 means 2 units down. So point P would now be where point D is. It asks where will point P be located after rotating whatever degrees around the origin. So that's what we're trying to find is the coordinates of its new point so we can tell where it's going to be at. Okay. Now part C says 270 degrees. Again, my original point was at 1, 2. So if I'm rotating 270 degrees, remember, according to my rule over here, we switch the order of the coordinates and then we change the sign on the second one. After you flip the order, you flip the order first and then change the sign on it. I always have people who end up trying to do that backwards when I've taught this before. So I flip the order first, 2 and 1, I write them down, and then I change sign on the one in the back so it becomes a negative. So now these are the coordinates of where P is going to be located now. So I look at my graph. Remember, your first number tells you left or right, so I go right 2 and then down 1, so it'll end up at point F.
F.
Okay, you're seeing where it is going. Now part D said it was a -90-degree rotation. Okay, -90 degrees, if you look up here, I told you that's the same as what?
270.
Positive 270. So do we even need to work it out? No, we just did it. We know it's going to be at point F. Okay, so that was number 16. Okay, we good with that? Yes, no, maybe? All right. Okay, on 17, we're just going to talk about a couple of these. Okay, we're not doing all of 17, we're just doing 2 of them. They're similar to what we just talked about. We're going to do C, and we're going to do E. Now, C says we're taking point Z and rotating it -180 degrees. Okay, so first of all, we have to get the coordinates of point Z. So you look at this graph, we're on a different picture now. It's got a little hexagon there. So point Z is where?
The 270 side.
They go, no, I'm talking about like its coordinates.
Oh.
Looks like it's,
I think I got 3.5.
yeah, mine's not drawn very good. Is yours actually on a grid line? Is your picture where the point Z is actually on one of those little blue grid lines?
Mm-mm.
Okay, because I don't want y'all doing fractions, Lord help us. Y'all know you don't want to do fractions, do you? Okay, so never mind, we won't do 17. All right, we're good. Okay, we'll go to 18. That one's nicer. All right, 18 is nicer. It says express each clockwise rotation about the origin as a counterclockwise rotation and state the corresponding map rule. Well, should you all be able to do number 18? Because number 18 is basically just copying down your notes. Okay? Because on part A of 18, it says a -90-degree rotation. So it says write it as a positive counterclockwise rotation and then state the rule. So -90 we said is a
270.
270. So you'll just put, this is how you're going to do those on that one. You'll have -90 degrees is equal to a positive 270 degrees and then you'll write your rule. So that's all you're doing on A, B, and C. You're going to take the negative one it gives you, tell which one of the positive ones it's equal to, which I wrote them right next to each other for you on the notes already in your rule. Okay, so you're just going to copy those down for 18. So y'all can do that on your own time. That's pretty easy. All right, so let's look at 19, 20, and 21. 19, 20, and 21, it says state the coordinates of the image's vertices after each given rotation about the origin, then graph both the pre-image and the image. Okay, so you've got your original image is the black one again, and we're trying to find the new one. So for number 19, I have 3 points in that triangle. I have point A, point B, and point C. So I got to start first getting my coordinates of those. So remember your coordinates, your first number is how far to the left or right, second number is how far up or down. So on A, it is 1 unit to the right and 2 up. So it's at 1, 2. B is at 1, 2, 3. Is that 4 to the right and 1 up?
Yeah.
And C is at 1, 2, 3 right, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Double check me and make sure you got the same points. Okay. Now it says we're rotating at 90 degrees. So if I'm rotating at 90 degrees, we're going to use our rule from our notes for 90 degrees. Our rule for our notes for 90 degrees says we switch the order of the coordinates and then change the sign on the one in the front. Okay, so I've got to find my A prime, my B prime, and my C prime, my points in my new image. So I flip the coordinates. So if it was 1, 2, it's going to become 2, 1. And then I change the sign on the one that lands in the front, so it will be at negative 2, 1. You flip the coordinates, change the sign on the one in the front. It's just using your rule. For B, I will put what?
You put 1, 4, or
Yeah.
-1.
Make it a negative 1. For C,
You do 4, 3,
and make it a
negative.
negative 4. Okay. Now, you should be able to, because they actually gave you the grid on this, should you be able to plot those points and connect them and draw your new triangle? Yes, you should. Your first number, all of these, remember it's going 90 degrees, so if it's all in the first quadrant, it's going to end up all in the second quadrant, because that's going from one quadrant to the next, 90 degrees. So all of these are negative, so you'll go to the left and then up when you're graphing your points, and you'll have number 19 drawn. Now on number 20, we have a trapezoid. So it's got 4 points. So we got Q, let's say P, Q, R, and S. P, Q, R, and S. And we are rotating 180 degrees. And we'll have to find our new point P, our new point Q, our new point R, and our new point S. So remember, your original image, the black one in the picture in your book, is called the pre-image, and then the answer is your image. So when we're doing these, this one is 180 degrees. So for our rule for 180 degrees, you just change the signs. So if they're both positive, they're going to become both negative. Okay, if it's a negative, it's going to become a positive. All we do is change our signs. So first of all, we got to figure out where P, Q, R, and S are. Okay, so we got to look at them here. You've got stuff that's a little bit in the first quadrant, a little bit second, you got a point in the third. It's all over the place. Covers a lot of the coordinate plane. So point P goes 2 units to the left, and then 3 units up to get to point P. So it's -2, 3. Point Q is 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the left and 2 units up. Point R is 1, 2, 3 units to the left and 1 unit down. So that's -3, -1. And then point S is 1 unit to the right and 2 units up.
Wow.
Remember, you're starting at your origin every time to find where you go to get the point. So I've got all my coordinates. Now, when we're rotating 180 degrees, remember, we didn't switch the order of the coordinates. We just changed the signs on them. Okay, because it said for x, y, you end up with it -x, -y. So if it is a negative, it's going to become positive. If it's a positive originally, it's going to become a negative. Because we have our figure up here, kind of in the top, and it's got to flip all the way around to where it ends up down here in the bottom. Because it's going 180 degrees. So it's going the exact opposite from where it is right now. So here, it's -2, 3, so it will become +2,
Positive 3.
-3.
Negative 3.
Okay? Remember, for 180, you just switch the signs. Here was -4, 2, so it'll become 4, -2. Here you had -3, -1, so it will become +3, +1. Here you had +1, +2, so it will become -1, -2. Okay? So this one was 90 degrees. This one, it told us to do 180 degrees. So then number 21 tells us to do what?
270.
270 degrees. Okay, they were covering all 3 rules with you on this. So for number 27, if you look, 21. Yeah, 21. I got 27 because it's 270 degrees. We have a triangle, which is M, N, and O. So I have my original points for M, N, and O. I got to find my new points for M, N, and O. And I'm doing a rotation this time at 270 degrees. So it's going like 3 quadrants around. 270 degrees is like 3 quadrants around. So if you look, it's kind of all mainly down here. So it's going all the way around. Your final one should end up down here if you can see. All right. So what are my coordinates for point M to start with?
1.
I want the original M.
4 to the right.
1, 2. I got 3 to the right and then 1 up. Y'all agree with me?
Yeah, I see that now.
Okay, 1, 2, 3 over, 1 up. Point N, I go 1, 2, 3, 4 over, and 1, 2, 3 down.
3 down.
And then point O, does it go anywhere?
No.
So it is the origin, which is at 0, 0. So for our rule for 270, do we switch the order of the points? For 270 degrees, we switch the order of the points, and then we change the sign on the one that ends up in the back. Okay? So 3, 1 is going to become 1, 3, and then I change the sign on the one in the back, so it's going to be at 1, -3. Okay. 4, -3 will become -3, 4, and then I change the sign on the one in the back, so it'll actually be -3, -4. 0, 0, does it have any signs? They're both the same, so it's still going to be at
0, 0.
0, 0. Because most of the time when we talk about a rotation, you'll notice in the wording in the book, it says about the origin. Your origin is right here. So it's basically saying this is the focal point, and they're turning the figure around in the coordinate plane, that origin. Okay, so we have our points. So what I would like for you to do is actually try to do what? Graph the pictures in there in your book on the coordinate plane, where you write them on there. Okay. So we did number 16. You got to finish stating your rules on number 18, B and C. And then we've got 19, 20, and 21. You're just finishing trying to do the pictures. Now, a lot of you, I still don't have everybody's test 9. Okay, I've been trying to grade those, but I can't send anything back and tell you things to do or whatever if I don't have it from you yet. Okay, I can't tell you what to fix if I don't have it. So I need those. Okay, I need them, I need them, I need them. Okay, now today is Friday, so do we have Zoom normally on Mondays?
Nope.
No. However, this Monday, which is the 11th, okay, I will have a Zoom open at 1 o'clock, and I'll send you information through your My School Works email, so you'll have the info. But I am going to have a Zoom lesson at 1 o'clock on Monday for any of you who are still totally lost on stuff from Chapter 9, for quizzes you had to finish from Chapter 9, or the Chapter 9 test. Okay, so it's going to be like tutoring, but you can't come up here, so we're going to do it through Zoom. Okay, but I will send you the login information for that through your My School Works message. Okay, but
Okay,
it would be like just a regular lesson. Like, as far as, I'll give you the meeting ID and password, you go to zoom.us, you type it in, you come on here. Okay, but we're going to go back specifically over certain things that you had trouble with on any of the 2 quizzes over Chapter 9 and your Chapter 9 test, so we can try to get those fixed to get better. Some of you didn't even send me your Chapter 8 stuff yet. So you got to get that done. I can't give you grades if you don't send it to me. Okay, now in your folders, your lovely orange folders that have your notes in there that we talked about, and we filled out the front page of Chapter 10 yesterday. In your folders, there is a paper, a worksheet that says transformations on it. And it looks like a bunch of little boxes, and one of the boxes has a dot in it on each problem. It's called transformations. Basically, it's asking you, what are they doing to that picture in each one? Are they reflecting it, which means did they just flip it over? Are they translating it where it's the same thing, they just slid it? Or are they rotating it where they just turned it? So it's just practicing those 3 definitions of the ones we've talked about so far. Reflection means it's flipped. Translation means it's slid or slide. Okay, rotation, of course, is a turn. So you've got that worksheet in there. Whenever you get that done, you can send me pictures of that too, and I can check that off. Okay, so for Monday, you will have tutoring at 1 o'clock if you need it for your Chapter 9 stuff. And you need to make sure you do that worksheet. Okay, don't forget about finishing these. If you want to take your picture of today's work when it's done and send that to me, that would be great. Otherwise, just make sure it's done. And I'll try to take some time next week to start having you all hold stuff up to the camera so I can see it. Okay, for stuff that we've done in the book. Any questions about what I just said? Everybody good? You know what's going on? Does everybody still know what they still owe me? Okay, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go through, and I'm going to be sending out messages to people. Of course, when I send you messages, it's in My School Works. So it kind of is important for you to log in to My School Works and see if I sent you anything. So check My School Works later this afternoon. Make sure you definitely check it on Monday. And I'll have some stuff in there for you about things you may still owe me individually, and also the code for the tutoring. Okay? Everybody good? Okay, before you leave, do not forget to tell your mom Happy Mother's Day Sunday. Be good. Sunday's Mother's Day. Okay? You're like me, I don't care if I get anything. They need to actually remember and tell me Happy Mother's Day. Okay? So just remember, tell her Happy Mother's Day. That means a lot, just saying it. Okay? Have a good weekend. I'll see you all Monday if you come to tutoring, otherwise Tuesday.